Well, let's start there, and we can add to this as we go. We have, like I said, several hurdles that we're hearing and seeing out there, and want to make sure that we talk about today. So, and talk about some solutions. And today's kind of meant to be an open discussion and chat for sharing and ideas, and then we can kind of share some things we have and go from there. So, why don't we talk about inventory and ways in which you're addressing inventory issues? How are you all finding new properties, and does anybody have any ideas or things that you're using or sharing as far as finding new properties?
Well, I mean, I'm checking the coming soons on the Park and Village Facebook website.
Yep.
And the coming soons, I mean, as soon as the property comes on the MLS, I'm going ahead and scheduling my showings. And because they're so booked up, it's insane to even see the property,
Right.
Anybody
else?
I was going to say, one of the things that I have a couple of clients that are obviously looking in the hot areas like Thompson Station, Spring Hill, Franklin, 12 South. And I've been talking to them about looking at the next peripheral area. There's still competition, but there's less competition. And I was talking to another agent with another brokerage the other day, and she's had the same luck that I have doing that. And that we're saying, well, you're looking at this. Let's look at what your criteria, revisit that. And like, say, for Pleasant Hill or Pleasant View, it's very hot out there, and a lot of people are moving up there. I took some clients recently. I said, well, if you like this area, let's look over at Springfield. And they closed on their house recently there. They love it. And they love the little town and everything. So that's one alternative. But I'm still struggling because I still have a whole list of buyers looking that won't budge from there. So any more ideas on that would be helpful.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
On Nationomics, the panel, Ted, that you were on, Brian Copeland talked about the edges, which is what you're talking about, Jan.
Yeah.
The edges. So if you like Thompson Station, what about the edge now? And the way I put it to a client recently was, hey, look, I know I wanted to live in East Nashville so much that I moved to East Nashville, but that was a while ago. And would I have rather bought in East Nashville 20 years ago or 10 years ago when I did, when East Nashville wasn't quite that, so it's, so try to be a little flexible is what I'm advising in, like, hey, look, I know, Madison is the new Inglewood, is the new East Nashville, but how about Whites Creek, that kind of.
I've been trying to do that, but I have one of my clients is like, actually both of the people I'm working with right now are so particular on where they need to be. They're like, no, even if it's like 5 minutes outside of where they wanted, they're like, nope, too far of a drive. And so what I've kind of started doing was they wanted at least a 2-2. And I just started looking at 1.5. I'm like, well, you could build on later. And, it's just like, I'm trying to give them every solution or alternative. And that's been rough because they're like, well, no, I don't feel like putting the money in. And you're like, okay, well, you don't have the budget for what you're looking for. So.
Right. How else are you finding inventory?
I didn't do this, Ted, but I heard or saw on Facebook, and I thought it was a great idea. An agent recently closed with a property for a young couple, and what they went out and approached, I guess, someone that had a tenant, and they agreed to purchase the property, even though they can't take possession till I think later in 2022, because they wanted to buy a house right now. And obviously you have to have a place to live, but if you're currently in a place and you can do that, you might start looking at investment held properties and approaching those investors, especially if you have a first time home buyer or someone in that category that you're struggling finding that price point, which is, as we know, uber competitive. So I thought that was creative.
It is great. Yeah, I like that. So are they purchasing from they're purchasing from someone who's got has a current tenant in there?
Yes. And they knew the tenant's lease was long-term out and they were okay with that. And so I guess, and the landlord wanting to take advantage of the market right now while it's hot, get top dollar.
Yep.
It worked. It was a win-win. So I thought it was really super cool.
Absolutely. So maybe reaching out to landlords or looking at the rental market and possibly another way. Obviously, those are people that have property, they don't live in them, they might be open to selling. So exploring or reaching out to landlords.
Yeah, especially if they've held it a long time, which is what a lot of investment single family home owners have done.
Yep.
They're like, they've realized and paid for the property. So now's their time to harvest on their investment.
So what would be the protocol on that? Would you close on it now and it's almost like a temporary occupancy, but for the duration of the people's lease, and the original investor gets that money?
I don't know the specifics of how they did it. You couldn't do, because you're going to have it longer than 60 days. So I don't think you would be doing a temporary occupancy, but you're also legally bound to honor that lease, is what I understood, if there's a long-term lease on it. And most investment property owners, I don't believe, start to market properties for sale until they get close to the end of the lease. So you're like getting in front of that and saying, hey, I'll go ahead and buy it from you now and hold on to it as an investor. And, and that's the other piece, with lending, they may have to pay a little bit more because it is investment property if they already own another property. So those are some of the things that you have to take into consideration, but it's still, I think, a creative way if they're trying to get into this market that they can do so. It's not suited for everybody.
Yeah, but I think it's creative, and that's what we're having to look at here, right? Or like creative ways to overcome these hurdles. So I think it's wise to be looking at other solutions. We talk about inventory, right? I think that's great. I think the other would be, possibly looking at doing a sort of a lease purchase, right? Or if somebody wants to experience that, if there's some way, I'm looking at other ways or trying to find other ways to find inventory, right? So it might be, I've heard some success stories of, don't cringe, Craigslist, FSBO.com, really getting involved in community on Nextdoor.
Hey, Ted, on the lease to own,
Yes.
is I had one come up recently for that, and I've always kind of steered away from them because with a buyer, because I felt like it was more advantageous to the seller than the buyer. But do you have experience with that, and what exactly are the pros and cons of both?
Well, my experience is, if you can get terms today for a potential future purchase, unfortunately, from a real estate as an agent compensation perspective, it could be challenging because you wouldn't get paid until the closing, but at least you could have some future income that would be guaranteed. I think that the cons are really just, I would say that my experience of the cons have been getting it structured where the parties are comfortable. So if there were to be, what terms exist as far as financing, if the owner is going to finance it, and getting attorneys involved as to structuring and creating a mortgage, your title companies can do that and put together an amortization table that will have them paying the seller and making an interest rate on that. often the rate is a little bit higher than what you would get in a conventional setting. So my experience is that may be if they're going to do owner financed, right? But
Right.
Otherwise, with a lease purchase, the other con, if you will, for the tenant would be there tends to be a bit of a larger upfront deposit that if for some reason the tenant or future buyer wasn't able to perform, they would put that money at risk.
Okay. And
Right?
that's probably the
So,
biggest risk in the whole thing.
in my experience, yes, it is.
Okay.
It is, yeah. Any other places you're finding inventory? Ideas on inventory?
Yesterday, I drove around just to find for sale by owners
Yep.
that aren't posted on the MLS.
You know, I don't think, I love that you shared that, because I don't think you can underestimate the power of being present, right? And so, I mean, I'm that Middle Tennessee Coming Soon Facebook group. I mean, there's a lot in there, and then there's even more gems within people's comments. So a lot of times people are sharing things within there. I just saw another one for a under 300K Airbnb that gets disclosed through a comment within somebody else's post. So sometimes that's my free time sport, is to just read through some of the comments, and because other people are sharing things in there, and that's other ways to reach out. Piggybacking on somebody else's post.
I've had a little bit of success with just getting to network with some builders, and the builders that also are licensed. You always think, oh, they're just always going to list their own, product for sale once it gets closer to the time that it's going to pop out. And
Yep.
I've gotten to know some of them, and like, I know the inventory is going to be available in August, and I know where the house is at, and I know everything about it, and I know he's going to list it, but he's not done it yet. So it's like information that I have, but I don't necessarily have an active buyer for that exact thing. So I don't know how to monetize it exactly,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
because I won't ever get the listing. But it's like knowledge, and sometimes just networking with the builders. I've had, like I said, that's how I've gotten a few buyers, under contract, but not, it's just another little gem to find. You were mentioning on the under 300 short-term rentals, some post comment, Do you want to put that in the chat section?
No, I don't. Those are stupid. Yeah. Yes, that was
we could just take it offline later, whatever.
No, that's fine. Hey, listen, friends, we're all in the same family, and that was it. They had suggested Riverfront. It was Grant Hammond has a new one coming in Riverfront, and if you want information on to be on his short-term rental list, I think he called it. Email him at Airbnb@granthammond.com. But you can search that Middle Tennessee page. I think he posted yesterday about somebody had asked, I think Robbie Stone, where is the most affordable 1 to 2 bedroom Airbnb close to downtown? And so we have somebody looking for walkable Airbnb to downtown as an investor from out of town. And of course that is challenging, but again, I think it's also about just being in the know of like who's working those things heavily, which is, Grant Hammond and Deborah Volley. They seem to have their ears really close to the ground amongst many, many others. But networking with those people, I think, is important too. And leveraging your network, right? Because I'm seeing and hearing other agents that are saying, and this is just truthful, they're saying, we'll pay the fine for clear cooperation. We're tired of it. We're going around it. We'll pay the fine, because I'm not endorsing that, but I'm just saying there are agents that are now doing off-market deals or pre-market deals, because they're just like, it's nuts. I can't get things done. And so And there's modifications likely coming to the clear cooperation policy. I share that, and again, not as an endorsement, just in a knowing and knowledge to make sure to be connected and networked with your agents in and outside of our family. So.
And Ted, what is that penalty fee? Do we know? Like, I'm just curious to know how much you're getting hit if you do go down that road.
Yeah, that, Andrea, I don't know what that is, and I'm glad that I don't yet, in the sense of I can't recall. I know they shared it. I don't remember what it was.
Right.
And if they got hit with that, and that doesn't do anyone any favors that they go about that way or method, but it's a real dilemma we're all having right now, right? Inventory, of course, is king, and
Well, I suspect, look, there's all this talk come October when the moratorium is lifted of, the renters who are staying put, who are having trouble making their bills due to the COVID restrictions and job changes and all of that. There will hopefully be some more inventory coming on the market then, because the investors who have been owning those rentals, they may just be like, I am done. And perhaps nobody has approached them the way that, Jan had heard about. Nobody's contacted, but I know, there are a lot of realtors who, have been long-time investment property owners who are just like, what, they've gotten so hit so hard because their tenants haven't been paying rent for the last year that dump them. So there may be, I'm trying to be optimistic for my people who are looking.
Yep. How are you all handling buyer fatigue? I mean, ideas, thoughts, what are you doing? All right, I agree. It's really difficult. So there's so many solutions. Oh my gosh.
I think I've just been like completely honest with my buyers, especially my out of town one. Every offer that we lose, I always call the listing agent and I'm like, okay, tell me how I can make my offer more competitive. What are you seeing? And then they always have a story of, what, we have buyers too. And we've lost 9 properties. So I'm just kind of relaying that information to my buyer and letting her know, like, this is just the norm right now. Everybody's losing properties. You're going to lose some, but you will get lucky and get one eventually, just trying to make the expectations clear,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think Brittany's right. I think being transparent, but also offering some alternatives of how they go about searching is the best way to address it. That's how I've been doing it with my buyers. They see everything in the headlines, things are in the Tennessean and in the national papers. So they know the market is bad. Some of them think, I had one, he goes, yeah, I thought I was going to be one and done. And it's like, that's not what I told you. He goes, I know, but that's what I thought in my head. I said, he goes, this is going to be hard, isn't it? And I'm like, yes. And I'm glad you realized that up front, because you're going to get very frustrated. And he's renting, and his lease was coming to an end. And I was like, we really need to find you another place if you're not going to stay here, because this is going to take a while. We could get lucky, but let's not plan on it. Let's have a contingency for that. And, so I think having those honest conversations too builds trust with your buyer. And they're like, this is a person I want to deal with, because you're not blowing smoke up my skirt, but you're offering me some problems solving, and ways to deal with it. So not everybody's receptive to that, but I try to make sure I have clients that we're on the same page.
I like the feedback that was given yesterday in the training yesterday about,
Yeah.
setting the clear expectations. And a lot of clients are reading the news and seeing the news line, knowing that it's very competitive out there. But I think Wendy Mundy said it best, setting expectations, letting them know that, when we put in these offers, it may take 7 to 10 attempts, so that if they get their offer accepted, like the second or third, like, ooh, we exceeded expectations, and then you have a surprise there. But then the other tip was to try to also set their expectations, like what amount would you be mad at if your offer wasn't accepted, and what amount would you be mad at when you find out what it was sold for. So that was another good one too. So basically setting clear expectations and just trying to keep them upbeat and letting them know that they're not in there alone, because I have one that has to sell and buy. And I'm trying to tell her, you can't buy until that home is on the market. And of course, everyone knows that. But then the scary part of it is we know it's going to sell fast, but then you have to have somewhere to go, and no one likes moving twice. So it's an interesting time.
Yeah, this is true.
I
I've
think
also
that
been giving
exploring-
my, oh, sorry, go
ahead.
ahead, Teddy.
No, go ahead, please.
No, all of those things that everybody said, but I've also, one tactic I've also tried is taking a breath and like giving a few days off and just saying,
Definitely.
let's, especially after they've lost out on an offer, and they've cried about it and are heartbroken, just kind of saying, you know what, this, and kind of revisiting those, average amount of offers that it takes to get there. But why don't we just take a minute, a few days off, and then we'll touch base. If something perfect pops up for you, I'll send it your way. But, why don't we take a few days off and we'll regroup on Monday or whatever it is. And that actually has been very helpful with most of my buyers. And they're like, wow, I didn't realize that I needed that. So that's in addition to what everybody else has said already, that taking a little bit of a break has been helpful.
Because they think that it's just them. They don't
Yes.
realize how exhausting or defeated you also feel as an agent. Because
Right.
it's like you can have a client that's on the 300 side, and you can have a client like me on 1.4, and you can't, and they have that certain area, like you all mentioned, that they want to be in this geographic area. They need 5 bedrooms. They need the same number of bedrooms and enough room for a pool in the back. Yeah.
No
Right.
problem.
Yeah. And I find that they come back more energized after they've had a break. They're like, okay, I can do this again. And they're just as excited as when we started. So
Exactly. Even if they try to go out to those other areas, like Jan was saying, cast your net a little wider, but at the same time, you still run into the same situation, but at least you go through those scenarios of, if not Murfreesboro, if not Clarksville, which is another monster in its own self, and then you reel them back in, and now they're back at square one. So yeah, the break is needed on both sides.
Well, and I think y'all have said so many great examples of ways in which we can frame it for them, right? And I look at, for better or worse, these silly analogies, but you've maybe heard me talk about this is speed dating, but it's almost like you got to set it between dating and speed dating. For those that remember our days in dating, you get your hopes up and it gets exciting, and you see the one, like all of a sudden you're starting to envision your life with this house, right? And sometimes, for the best, you're let down quickly and it hurts badly. And it gets easier the more you're let down. And then you learn about this speed dating thing. You're like, what is speed dating? And it's like, y'all had never done speed dating. I had a friend that owned a speed dating company in Nashville way back in the day. But there'd be a bunch of people and you'd rotate chairs. You'd there like 5 minutes, you have a conversation, you see if this works. And it was like literally, no matter if it was great or not, you had to get up, go to the next chair, and start chatting again. And there was, I think there was growth in that repetitiveness and that process of getting comfortable with the process. And so I hate to tell people, like, you know, what's really happening is not that it's getting easier to get houses because you've made multiple offers, because the house you're making an offer on has no idea if it is your first or your 15th. It's that the buyer became less resistant, I think, to some of the things that they thought were non-negotiables. And that's where I think we can help them, really important on the front end. And in that break, which I think is really healthy sometimes it is good to take a couple days off and say, no houses, like promise me, we're going to look at any houses. It's going to be hard, but you got to heal a little bit, and having a refresh conversation. And so let's review goals, right? Why do we want a house? Is this a must? Okay. And then look at possibilities of financing choices. Is there any gift money we haven't explored? Is there any other family or friend participation that could be involved? Could you look at getting another bedroom and adding a roommate situation that could create different affordability? Do we need to be looking at ribbon as a possible solution to the buy and sell problem? Area expanding, we talked about edges and looking at beyond the areas that you think. Springfield, I just sold a home up there. It's adorable. They just had an outdoor festival like Friday or Saturday night. It was amazing. It was like the charm of Franklin without the prices. I love the criteria, switching from maybe a 2-bath to a 1.5 bath. Is that workable? Like, is there gap money for appraisals? And then new construction, right? What opportunities exist for new construction? And I think communication's super, super key. You've got to be in close communication with these folks, in that, like you said, they're wondering, is it me? And getting them out of the national headlines and into the local conversation of what's really going on, and that it's not personal, and that we will find one. Any ideas or thoughts or other ideas on buyer fatigue and how we keep people in the game? No.
I think, and I don't know if you plan on talking about this, but one of the things I just started on this last weekend with some offers is looking outside. It's more about the offer. And, we're presenting some strong offers, and he's limited by how much cash he can bring to the table, and he's doing the minimum financing. But I said, how can we get more personal and creative in our offers? And, this particular client got kind of jazzed about that. And I said, here are my ideas. Because after looking at the property, as we went through it, we realized that these homeowners, their listing agent did a terrific job of the house, had no personal items in it, except we knew they had a baby. They had a baby's room. There were some baby's clothes. They did take portions of them out of the closet, but they definitely had a small child, a toddler. And so we said, as parents, the most important thing in their life would be their child. And so in addition to offering way above the asking price, we put in there to pay for a full 8 hours of babysitting the day of their move out, because we also were offering them temporary occupancy to the maximum number of days. And then also I got with my financial advisor and try to find out, I don't have any kids, so I didn't have to do this, but what a 529 plan is, which is for saving for education. And my guy's like, Jan, for $750, you can set up an account. And I was like, okay, well, let's set up an account. I said to my seller, and I said, he can do it quickly and immediately. And so we put that in there. Now, we didn't get it, but we're still in the midst because we're one of the backups. So we're like, we didn't get it because of timing, because they didn't wait till their deadline and went ahead and got it under contract. But she did notify me yesterday that they're doing a quick inspection, and she'll let us know if they're going to move forward with the offer or not. So I'm like, I'm going to start, not crazy, but doing things a little more creatively. And I think you get your buyer into their thinking with you. that the two of you can come up and they feel like they're part of the solution to just, to differentiate. And they may have services they can offer that you didn't even think about, Maybe they're an accountant, maybe they're a hairdresser. I think I heard Crystal mention that on one of her offers. So, see what you can bring to the table. And that does get people a little bit more re-energized. Like, okay, now we're not doing the same old offer,
Time to cash in favors with Uncle Charlie that owns a landscaping company, and you're going to landscape their new house, right?
Yep, exactly. What do you see on the property that gives you a clue to who and what they're doing? Because this agent, she was really good about I couldn't tell anything, even though I spoke with her. She's very businesslike, but she wasn't sharing anything that I didn't need to know about her clients. So she was doing a great job for them. So we just had to go on what we could visually see.
Like it. Anything else on buyer fatigue? All right, we're gonna share a couple of hurdles that we have found solutions on special stipulations and clauses.
Good.
Rebecca, would you share a little bit on that?
$30.
Sure, I'll be happy to. So for those of you who have been on Pricing Pros and tech tips and all that sort of thing recently, you're probably sick of me talking about clauses, but they're just so helpful to have in these situations. And it'll save you a lot of time and hassle and headache and make your deals so much cleaner. And that is one thing. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. The cleaner the offers we can present, the more brownie points we're going to get. Something as simple as we made it super easy for the listing agent could make the difference if we're close, if we're in the ballpark. So if there are any particular special stipulations or clauses that you're interested in talking about, just throw them out here, throw them in the chat, whatever. And then I'm just going to give you a quick tour of a couple of things. So of course, we're not lawyers. So Ted, do you mind if I share screen for a second?
No, please go ahead.
All right. So we're not lawyers. So ideally, we don't want to be writing clauses, right? If we can help it. So we're going to check our resources for everything that's available to us already. But before we go in there, let's talk just a second about the difference in business terms and legal terms. All right. So we're not lawyers. So if it's something having to do with the legal term of the contract, then we don't want to be mucking too much with that kind of stuff. And so we want to go give a lawyer's opinion. What we're talking about here are business terms. Okay. So things that affect the business of the contract, the offer. So I'm going to go into transaction desk, just to remind you where the clauses are here. You go into settings, the clauses, and you've got system clauses, office clauses, and personal clauses. Ones I'm just going to focus on today are system clauses and office clauses. System clauses, these are the things from the Tennessee Realtors Form RF 707. Does everyone know the RF 707? Please tell me yes. If you don't, you can go to the Tennessee Realtors website, and it's thinking. I got too many windows open right now. We're going to go to Tennessee Realtors, members, forms on the fly. You can also go to forms and transaction desk, but I just want to show you forms on the fly. We're going to go down to the RF 707. And I went too far. Well, here, sorry about that. There we go. Additional contract language. And this covers so many things that you might think, oh man, this came up, but I'm going to have to write the language for it. Check here first. Seller to pay buyer expenses. You shouldn't be winging it on how you put that language in the line in the purchase and sale agreement. Don't wing it. Go get it here. Buyer's first right of refusal. There's an addendum for that. Reduction in price in lieu of repairs. Don't put that. Don't make up your own language on that, okay? We can get ourselves into trouble because of word or miswording or whatever. This has been created by the lawyers of Tennessee Realtors. So go here first, all right? contingencies, approval of others. If you've got an out of country spouse and you want to put in the offer, but it's got to be contingent on somebody else seeing it. All sorts of things in here that you may have not known were here. So be sure you familiarize yourself in case of divorce. Ugh. All right, check here first and see if the language is here. And again, you don't have to go to the RF 707 because the can't get back to the form, because in the system clauses and transaction desk, everything's already here. All right, but the problem here is you have to click on it and open it up and view it. Okay, so that's the system clauses, RF 707, and then the office clauses. These are the ones for village, of course. And so if you've got something that you've got keeps coming up over and over, and reach out to Colin, reach out to Loy or Colin, and then she can reach out to Loy. And because if you're having something come up over and over, we've come up with a creative solution for X, and you want to keep using that because it seems to give your offers an advantage, reach out to Colin and they can put it in here for the village specific clauses. All right. Are there any clauses or special stipulations in particular that you have a question about, maybe causing you a headache? You've seen it popped up and you don't really understand it. Anything I can help? But here with special steps and clauses, the gist of that is search before you type, right? So they get it out there.
Yes.
All right, I'll stop sharing.
Are there any clauses or issues that you're all questioning or wondering about? All right. I had seen this piece of sharing here. I'll just pop this in the chat here. Oh, it might be too long here, but let's see here. Just as we were asking about, I just saw this. I'm going to share my screen here. I'll share this. They said, excuse me, think outside the box, like Jan was talking about. What does your buyer have that will sweeten the deal? Can they offer a free week stay at their beachside condo? Great tickets to a big concert coming up. Maybe they know someone in that promotional side of things. Tickets to Preds or Titans games. Purchase a membership to a golf course for a year. They'll pay for a lawn service to cut the seller's grass for a year at their new location. Do they have any autographed memorabilia that they might like from the seller? I mean, I don't know. I mean, these are just creative, crazy ideas. Like if somebody had a Michael Jordan basketball, can they give them an Uber gift card worth $1,000 so they can enjoy events in their new city without fighting traffic? $1,000 DoorDash gift card when food, whenever they don't feel like cooking, tickets to Disneyland, whatever it is, it can't go on the PSA. It's accomplished through a signed letter from the buyer to the seller with specifics. For example, airfare not included, the time of year the beach condos available, things like that. All right.
Did you say $1,000 coupon to DoorDash?
Yeah.
Dang, that is a lot of Crystal burgers.
And did you
And
say
Uber.
that it can't go on the PSA? Is that what you said? You're saying
Correct.
yes, it cannot go on the PSA. Okay.
Yes, it cannot.
Yes, it cannot.
So it has to be in a personal letter to the seller.
Yes, with the specifics of that. Mm-hmm.
So apparently I did mine incorrectly.
Well, I'm not the authority on it. I'm just telling you, I think what the lenders may have,
You're right.
The lenders may have asked that to be pulled off, but for offer purposes, you may put it in there, but know that that may need to be amended and you may include that in your cover email.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Other agent hurdles. What are you feeling and finding out there? I've got inspections. As is inspection, risk or reward. I'll share this about as is inspections. Notice I'm not calling them pass fail. Let's get away from pass fail. There's not a pass fail. It's as is. What I would encourage though is make sure that you are getting the get an inspection form signed and them selecting what they're asking for on that, such as radon, lead-based paint, things like that. Specialists, make sure they know what they're really getting. You may have seen, I just saw a post from one of our colleagues that 2 days after they moved in, both of the HVAC systems went down. And probably nothing's more upsetting than you won the house, but now you've won a huge bill for something else. So make sure that you're offering to your buyers to get specialists to look at these components and things as well. In a beyond the generalist inspection, you can certainly get an HVAC specialist, a roof specialist. I've seen people hire plumbers and they scope the sewer line. So a lot of these old clay sewer pipes collapse over time, about 50 to 70 years. So a lot of the Westmead homes, you'll see a lot of that, and people will get a plumber out there to at least scope the line. So they know what they're walking into. Pool.
Yeah, I had
Yes,
that
Rebecca.
issue. So the 1929 home over in Hillsborough, and then later got word from the buyer that something was wrong with the sewer line. So definitely will take that into consideration for future. That's a good point.
Yeah, and I sort of stole that from another agent that was, we were a backup, and they had told me though that the first offer had done a sewer line scope, and I was like, sewer line scope, okay. Yes, Rebecca.
Who do we go to for that? Because your average inspector doesn't do a sewer line scope.
I think
Yep.
it's a plumber, isn't it?
It
Is
is.
it, yeah, just your
Plumber,
normal
Mhm.
licensed plumber's got that capability? Okay.
Yeah.
naked,
And
or whatever.
I know a friend of mine that had to deal with, she doesn't live in Tennessee, but she was in Ohio, and she had a cute older home built in, I think, the 30s or 40s. And the sewer line connection from the house to the street had deteriorated, and she ended up having to pay to replace it. But she said, the next time I buy a house, since she tends to like older houses, she was like, I am definitely going to have the sewer line inspected to make sure of what condition it's in, because a lot of it's that old galvanized, and especially with the sewer lines we have in Nashville, you can run into that because of the age of home.
Yes.
I know drain doctors will do it, and I don't remember it being very expensive, but I've had 3 buyers just this year that have wanted it done on their houses.
Yeah,
Diligent.
I think
will
once
do
they've
it.
experienced it, they want it done.
Yeah, Diligent does it for $200 in addition to the home inspection.
Who is that?
Diligent.
Oh, Diligent. Okay.
I feel like their prices have like doubled this year. Like, I don't know. I don't.
Well, they're guaranteeing if you book with them, they will be able to have an inspector available within 48 hours.
Okay.
So they're recognizing the demand, right, within the market. And I think they're just, bumping up that price.
Yep. Great stuff. I saw in the chat here, thoughts on home warranties. Yes, I do think in a pass fail, a home warranty even is more important because it just adds another affordable layer of potential protection.
Yep.
Right. And I explain warranties as, obviously I would not ask a seller to pay for a home warranty, but you can still have the buyer put on their contract to be part of the financed transaction. I explain that they're not bumper to bumper. They have exclusions like most warranties and insurance. There is a trade fee for every time you call and have a breakdown. However, especially if it's an older HVAC system, it is probably one of the most affordable ways to give yourself a great chance at that being covered. And it's not something that's going to be covered on insurance. Sometimes people think, oh, on my homeowner's insurance. not unless it's likely struck by lightning and you can prove that. And even then, they may only give you a prorated amount. So they'll say that thing's 10 years old, it's worth, $300. We'll give you that towards your $3,000, $7,000 new system. So.
Right. I've recently had a young couple that I sold to them in April, and they bought in Madison. They bought a house that was a rental and there was poor condition, but that was one of the things we went after. Was another way to get another property is things that other people were walking away from. And I advised them to get the home warranty. I said, look at the things that we've already pointed out that need to be replaced. Well, sure enough, we had all the rain come and everything, and they noticed an issue with water in their secondary bathroom, and they were going to have a lot of sewer pipes and that needed to be replaced under the house and different connections and stuff. And they were like, hey, Jan, we just called the warranty company. And, so they were glad they had purchased it. And they were, like I said, very limited funds, but got the home inspection warranty. The home warranty.
In the scheme of the competitiveness of this market, the $500 to $600 for that warranty is
worth its weight.
cheap.
Yeah.
Yes. It's your insurance, your peace of mind.
It's so cheap. Yes,
Yeah.
Rebecca. Go ahead.
Well, I was just curious to know. So, Jan, were you? I've just been continuing to use America's Preferred Home Warranty because I can get Ken on the line and he'll go to bat for me a lot.
I use a Choiza. I'm probably not pronouncing it correct.
A Choiza with Emily.
Yes, and I had a question with Emily, and it had to do with how they billed me and my client in the payment. So I was concerned, to be honest with you, on this particular instance. But Emily was like, Jan, you're covered, you're good, your client's good. Call me if you have any issues that result from how they had paid for and everything. And we had no issue. And I like a Choiza because you can pick your vendor, where a lot of agencies, a lot of these companies will have a group of preferred vendors.
Right.
And that was when I gave them the option, I didn't tell them they had to do it. I said, but you want to go with a company, and here, I gave them American, I gave them a Choiza. I said, these are the options, some of them, and unless you have a preference. But so far I've had good luck with them. And Emily was super responsive. She was texting.
Yeah, I just, okay, good to know. I, that there's another option out there who will let you have, America Preferred Home Warranty. I know they let you choose your own contractor. So
yeah,
good to know that the other one does as well.
Yeah.
And it's important to have a relationship with your lender partner or partners, just because there are sometimes issues, and it helps to be able to call them and talk through it if your buyer has an issue, because they do look to you a little bit for answers on that. So, Rebecca, you added some things you wanted to add to as is inspections.
Yes, if you don't mind, I'm just going to grab the screen here real quick, and this is going to tie into several things that have already been addressed. But when we're dealing with these advising buyer clients to go with as-is inspections, it could cause some concern. We need to be able to explain what that means, the implications of that. And so, the place we would start is actually not the get a property inspection form. It would actually be your purchase and sale agreement and the section on inspections. And of course, we have the language for the as-is inspection that's in the office clauses and transaction desk. But be sure you can talk to your buyers through what that means, what an as-is inspection means, and that you're letting them know it means you only have 2 of these 3 choices. Right. So go to your inspection and make sure they understand that. So they're making an informed decision. We're not advising them to do as is or not. Don't say, yes, go as is. Explain to them what that means and what it doesn't mean. Right. So you'd start there. And then as you go through this, hopefully you've already gone through this section with them. because there's a lot of information about what you might want to have looked at during an inspection period. If we go up to the initial inspect, well, starting even in section 6, lead-based paint. Section 7, including but not limited to inspection of heating, cooling, electrical systems, foundations. Scrolling down to the initial inspections, include any controls normally operated by the seller, including the following components, blah, blah, blah. All right, so this is where your buyer is going to make the determination of what inspections they want to have done. With destroying insects, explain about termites, and if you're getting a loan, you're going to have to do that. Final inspection, then you scroll on section 9, additional due diligence options. Survey and flood cert, insurability, the water supply, especially if you're working in an area south of here, then there's not a, maybe on septic system, waste disposal. All these sorts of things you should be advising your buyer to look at if they're going with the as-is inspection. Since I've mentioned the RF 712, the importance of inspections and getting a property survey, right? So home inspections, why you need one. Appraisals are different, all right? Be an informed buyer, property survey, and then of course radon gas testing was added. So make sure you're giving this to your buyer, and of course we all know about lead-based paint and the property condition disclosure form. You want them to look at that as well. But just I want to show you one other thing. I hope everybody's using the disclaimer notice in your buyer rep packages. That's the RF 304. All right, and so this says. A friend of mine, actually, she was my first client, she said, pretty sure this document says you don't know anything about anything. And I said, except real estate. But it's saying, I don't know about this, but these are things that I can help you find somebody who knows something about. Condition of roofing, home inspection, and it's got stuff listed here. Termites, environmental hazards like radon, gas, mold. We need to be providing this information to our buyers as soon as possible, and especially if they're considering an as-is property, going as-is on the inspections. Two other things. If you are there, I wanted to take you back to the, oh, I hate that little drop-down thing in Zoom. It covers up your little thingies. I'm going back to the Tennessee Realtors forms. So down on this forms on the fly thing, there's this whole section that has broken out the forms that have to do with inspections. And the one, of course, lead-based paint, we all know about that if the property was built before 1978. And the residential property condition disclosure, final inspection amendment, importance of inspection and property survey, new construction. But there are quite a few others, and I want to take you, this is a complete list of all the forms. The ones that are highlighted in green, you see 53. Sorry, Ted, what does that mean? 53.
I'm only, is anyone else just seeing, I think you're in PowerPoint, or what are we in here?
I'm in a PDF right now.
Okay, in the center there of line 53 where it says home inspection.
I don't think you're seeing what I'm seeing, so sorry.
We
What are
only see
other-
the importance of an inspection, that form.
All right, I'll just stop sharing. How's that?
No,
So
that's
anyway, no. I was just going to say the point is there are a lot of resources already available. It's not enough for us to be saying, as is. That's if you want to go that way, great. We can offer that. Be sure you're pointing out all these areas where we've already provided them information about the inspections that they may need to get, and then we can provide them help with finding those if needed. But I would highly recommend that you use the form RF 712, which is the vendor list, and not just put the, say, here are a couple, even if you're making a referral for a mortgage lender, or as Jan was just talking about, a home warranty company. If we're suggesting a general inspector, radon, anything like that, I highly recommend you use that form, RF 712. It's saying we're providing this to you as a courtesy. You don't have to use these, but I don't know anything about this stuff. So it provides some protection for you, and you're treating every vendor, every buyer or seller the same way. So use that list. And Ted and I made one, and we just have this standard, lenders, home warranty company, insurance people on one. Then we've got general inspector, radon, all those on a roofing on another. And we're just that way we're not winging it. We're not showing any preferential treatment, and we're protecting ourselves a little bit while providing a service to them. So, thank you.
I like it. All right. Any other agent hurdles you want to share or address here before we wrap up? Okay. The last two that we wanted to touch on was agent incompetence or misdoings. When you're frustrated or dealing with the hurdles of an agent not responding to you or getting back, or those type of things. Rebecca, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm not sure I want to touch that one.
I wouldn't either. Listen, friends, I just saw a long-time experienced agent post on a forum last night about somebody that wouldn't get back to them. And, I don't know about publishing their names per se in those spaces, but if you're not getting some of the answers that you desperately need, obviously feel free to respectfully go out to their broker or any other alliances or affiliations they have to see if there's other ways to get in touch with them, and respectfully what you're trying to accomplish, and make sure you're treating others the way that you want to be treated, following those MLS instructions. I'll share this. I thought was very interesting, but that something to be mindful of. I saw these agent instructions and I thought, wow, this is very interesting. But look at these agent instructions here. And I think you should be prepared that, there may be more sellers that are going to ask for this. And I think it's important that buyers are more pre-qualified than they may have been in the past. You can see here for financed offers, this is what they want: the pre-approval letter answering these questions, because the pre-approvals are really, they typically just run their credit score and they look at their debt to income. And it's just very, very lean on what it's representing. And I think these questions are pretty poignant as to what extent of pre-approval they are. And then for cash purchases, must include the name and contact of the institution, should display an amount total to purchase, that confidential information. I mean, they're just really, really explicit with this. I reached out to this agent because I thought he's a limited listing company, and I just thought it was so interesting of how, to what extent he went through on this. And of course, he's not asking for escalation clauses here. And he's kind of preparing people of why. And I'm happy to share this. I thought it was Liberty House Realty. He's a limited listing, flat fee listing company, but the extent and detail to which he goes through, sellers have this liberty right now. And I think it's important that he's going to that. Like if it's an LLC, he's spelling that out. Any thoughts or questions on that? Yeah.
So is that the difference between a pre-approval or pre-verification? Isn't there a difference or a distinction between the two types of letters, going back to the finance one? Because I thought there were two types of letters. Oftentimes when it's a pre-approval letter, it doesn't give you the in-depth that, they verified everything. Because remember, some of them will say, conditional until documents are received, but you were the ones that know that the taxes and so forth have been reviewed. Isn't there a difference between the letters that you can say pre-qualification and pre-approval letter is what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, the pre-approval is a more in-depth, I think, Yolanda, versus the pre-qualification is
So when you say that
cursory one.
Yeah, so when you say that, sometimes people don't. I found that people didn't understand what I was talking about. I don't want a pre-qualification letter, I want a pre-approval. And I think the pre-approval gives you more of that they verified the documents.
Well, and that's why I love this checklist. And the sellers have the liberty right now to give that to them. This is what you're looking for in the answers.
Right.
If you have this stuff from a buyer, does this help potentially put you ahead that the pre-approval letter looks like this or has this in it? Give this to your lender partners and have them doing this with their buyers, because we have a closing rate that was supposed to happen on Monday. And, we're getting all sorts of excuses and reasons right now and a desire for an extension. And, I'm asking for non-refundable deposit money, which they're giving, to extend because they didn't have an appraisal contingency, but then they disputed the appraisal because there was a bedroom short in it, and it cost us a week of time. And now we're hearing things about, Israeli family gift money and Google translators and all this stuff. I'm like, it's just challenging. And you feel like you're sort of in the fourth quarter, and what else are you going to do? So
I think that information, Ted, I was just sitting here thinking, because I have the buyer pre-consultation. We sit down before we go out and go through everything. The way that's laid out could actually go over to my list of what I give my buyers and say, here's what I mean when I say pre-approval. These are the things you need to give your banker to make sure these have happened so that we stand in a stronger position. And some of the other information on that sheet. Are you going to share that with us?
I will. Yes, I will.
I would love that. I would love that. That gave me some ideas because then you can answer those questions, and say, yeah, they did this, this, and this.
Yeah, you're wanting a copy. I will. I just dropped it into the chat. You can take some of those samples. I think there's some really strong things there. He actually was shocked. He was shocked. I reached out to him and told him how much I appreciated that. He goes, nobody ever thinks that. They all think I'm crazy. But, when you're representing a seller, and again, I think it just shows ways to give advantage to a buyer of, wow, okay, this is way beyond just somebody, unless it's cash. These pre-approvals and pre-quals I find are quite incomplete. So other note that we forgot to mention as we wrap here, and I know we're a couple minutes over, is on inspections is a clue report. And I know probably many of you are using or familiar with those, but make sure to ask your buyer to get a clue report from their insurance provider. And the clue report would show, it's kind of like a Carfax. It would have shown any insurance claims made on the house. And often you may find when you did an inspection that there's hail damage. And ironically, they were paid for a full roof replacement 5 years ago. And yet there's hail damage, or recent hail damage. One that which the claim should have covered the repair that was on there, and you find maybe it didn't. And so you'll want to understand that. And it can also give you some other insight. Also be checking any permits pulled. There's other due diligence that could be done that way.
Who provides, or where can you get the clue report, did you say?
The clue report's provided by the buyer's insurance provider. Yep.
Okay.
Clue report. And our area uses that term. It's similar across the country, but I think we're going to see more and more type of home facts or clue report style things coming near you. I will share this. I spoke to the owner of Dotted and Cross yesterday, and she said that, their business is really, thankfully, they still have all of their transaction managers on staff and supported, but some of them are still accepting new files. They're also hearing a lot of business change. There's agents that are having to get second jobs. They just can't make ends meet with the buyers that they have, or not being able to get contracts. And one thing I noted to her was the title companies are buried. And if there was support that you could leverage your license or skill, if you have other people that you could maybe do some contract work for a title company to still leverage some of your experience and expertise and learn other skills, but help in the task load that they have, because they're dealing with the refinances. And so yeah, just it's certainly challenging out there. Everybody's having to pivot. She was mentioning, I was asking her about some competition. She's Dotted and Cross started here in Nashville. They're in like 5 markets. They're experiencing the same thing in St. Louis and Memphis and Denver, and of the shortages of inventory. And that there's another company called Transactly. It's an app out there that's a national C2C. And ultimately, she's talked to the owners of them, and they're just leveraging to get bought by Zillow. So people that are using them, that's ultimately their 5-year out, is that they'll be bought by Zillow. So if you can't see the writing on the wall, Apparently, you know, the owner of Zillow is the same guy that started Expedia, and he said, my goal is to put the travel agents out of business. And they essentially did it in one way or another. There's still a great service for, I think, travel agent services, but they're automating this in a lot of different ways, and these markets will not always be this way. And so as much as they transactionalize this process, I think it's important that we still demonstrate the value beyond like finding the house. They think that's all it is right now, is if you can win a house. But there's so much more, as we all know, those that are on here and those that will watch in the future, of what value you can provide. And I'm grateful for all of you for participating and sharing. Thank you so much. Is there anything else before we wrap?
Thank you as usual.
Okay,
Yep.
thank
Thanks,
you.
Ted.
Thank you all. I know there's always great ideas that come at us, so thank you all so much. And I wish you a great week. And we will see you tomorrow. We do this a little bit of this chat each week in Thrive, so we'd love to see you there if you want to talk about other tales from the trenches and ways we cope. All right, y'all.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you.
Have a great week. Take care of yourselves.
Bye.
Bye-bye.